I'm very excited to bring to the stage this excellent performer, the singer, songwriter, storyteller. I'd like to welcome to the stage Parfait Bassalé. Let's make some noise.
Hello, y'all. How y'all doing? Oh, that was not convincing. How y'all doing? There you go. That's a lot better. Thank you, Miguel. I really want to extend some gratitude to everyone who has had a hand in making this happen. Please give a shout out. The board of trustees, the staff, and yourselves waking up really early this morning to be here. You know, when I woke up, I had to come about an hour earlier to set up, and I was like, oh, this is brutal. I'm gonna need some coffee. Hopefully my vocal cords are ready for the task, but it is always an honor to be here. About a week and a half or so ago, maybe approaching the 2-week mark, I was able to go on a wonderful vacation with my family. We went to Hawaii, to the island of Kauai. And for those of you who have been, you know that Kauai is very lush and very green, less developed in terms of touristy areas and so forth. And that reminded me of my native West Africa. The thing about the trip was, so we went, the 5 of us, my wife Karima, who many of you know, was raised in this community. And my oldest son, who is 9 years old, and he's a lover of nature, so going to that island was just his dream spot. He was looking at different plants, looking at the animal life, the geckos, and just being super excited about it. And then my middle child, who's 7 years old, and he's just an all-around nerd. Loves to read, fascinating at 7, really into spirituality, and asked me all these questions about, I'm like, I don't know, buddy. I don't know about that. And then the queen-to-be of our lives, my 3-year-old daughter, who's ruling our lives, and everybody's saying, oh, that's just the beginning. Watch and see what's gonna happen. And so it was a privilege, the 5 of us going for a little break. It was a pretty tumultuous year for us. It was a professional transition for me, as many of you know in the community, and so being able to break away from all that and get grounded a little bit. But I was the planner of the trip, which means there was going to be a lot of hiccups. So the first one was I made a I made the mistake of booking through a third-party agency rather than the Alaska airline directly. So what that meant for our party of 5 is that our seating was not optimal, right? So on the way out there to Kauai, we were seated on row 20. And so on the left-hand side of the plane had my wife, Anaya, my daughter, and my middle child, Nuri. Across the aisle was Ashti, my oldest, and then he was sitting next to a couple, and I was sitting right behind him on row 19. So he didn't like that. He was like, why am I the one who's getting to sit with strangers? I'm like, welcome to life, buddy. Right? No, I didn't say it just like that, but but then I promised to him that on the way back, when we come back to Olympia, I will do my very best to ensure that he's no longer the one who's sitting with the stranger, that we'll be sitting together. So my goal on the way back from Kauai was to be as quick as possible to get to the gate and talk to the agent and try to figure out a seat rearrangement so that we could get our party of 5 together. And so here we are, 5 days later on the way back, I'm talking to the agent. And thank you for bearing with me, you all. The story has a point, okay? You're doing great. Your attention span is really fascinating. I'm really impressed. You're just like, okay, where is he going with this, okay? This is a little bit of a cultural experience right here, So you're tracking, I love it. So there's a point, bear with me. So I talked to the agent and we're looking at the options. I mean, it was a fully packed plane. And they said, listen, the best we could do is this. Row 19, your wife, Karima, and your daughter, and you go to row 32 with your boys. I was like, yes, I'll take it. I'll take it because I wanted to fulfill my promise to my son that he would not be sitting with a stranger, right? And so I thought it would be a wonderful trip. And so I got onto the plane. Anyone has ever traveled inside on Road 32? Okay, some know, others are like, what's the deal with Road 32? Okay, just a little tip, don't ever book on Road 32. So before the plane took off, and I know there's food at your table, so I apologize in advance for what I'm about to share with you, but as I sat at Road 32, I was on the aisle side. My kids were having a blast, the brothers were together. Before the plane took off, a few folks wanted to make their way to the bathroom to get ready for the long 6-hour flight. And very, very early on, I realized that it was going to be one of the longest 6 hours of my life. Because row 32 on the right-hand side of the plane didn't have a matching row on the left-hand side. Instead, it was the bathroom and the door facing me, right? And so every single time someone went in, I was blessed with amazing scents and fumes that were coming out of that door. And so I went through a range of emotions. The first one was I wanted to meet the engineer who really thought, or the team of engineers who thought it was a brilliant idea to maximize space and have 3 rows of extra customers at the expense of their comfort. I wanted to meet that engineer. Then I was like, okay, well, since it's gonna be a long 6-hour anyway, let's make it a social experiment. So I was reading a book, I flipped the back of my book, I was like, let me see who will be considerate, who even has a sense that Row 32 is a thing. And it was an interesting split. There was a range of folks who, as they came to use the bathroom, and as they came out, instinctively would try as best and as quickly as they could to close the door right away behind them. I was like, wow, that was not me, right? I've traveled times and times again and had no thoughts whatsoever that Row 32 was a thing. And so I was grateful for those folks. And then there were those, just like I was, would come in and leave the door just wide open, right? And so I had to time my breathing accordingly to everything. And then it occurred to me mid-course that actually the engineers, I was grateful for some of them because there was a spring system that was built into the door so that if it wasn't propped too wide open, it kind of closed itself automatically. I was like, oh gosh, someone thought of Row 32. Someone thought of me. Wonderful, thank you. Why am I telling you this story of Row 32? Because it reminded me a lot about our journey of life. How we're all on a plane, together, flying, and some are having a wonderful experience and others are having the Row 32 experience in our midst. And the fact that many of us, just like I was, have no clue that Row 32 is a thing. And those who some way, somehow, either because they sat at Row 32 before, or they heard a story about Row 32, or because they've developed a set of skill set and insight that allows them to think about Row 32, are mindful of Row 32. And I can tell you during the 6-hour flight, it was an interesting experiment. There were those who, as they walked past, they were like, we're almost there, bud. Right? And even though they could not reconfigure my seating arrangement, it made the flight a lot better. I felt seen. I felt thought of. I felt cared about. Even though they couldn't change the seating, just a little tap on the shoulder, a little hang in there, right? It was like, okay, we're getting there. Right? Hey, bud, I didn't get the clicker earlier. There we go. So, I got carried. There was supposed to be some background images as I was talking. So that's the flight right there. But as we think about this plane that is life, that we're all riding on, Row 32 could be a number of things, right? Could be those with mental health in our midst. I mean, we all know the impact of the pandemic in the last 2 years on mental health in our community, just to name a little bit, right? 32, row 32 could be those dealing with mental health crisis and challenges. It could be those with a disability, both visible and invisible, right? It could be those who look different than us and having a different experience in our midst. It could be those with a different sex identity, right? Man or woman. We still know about the disparities in salaries and income and opportunities. The women in our midst, right? Economic status. And we know all the things that impact those. And again, this is not a comprehensive list. It's just a few to get us to think about what row 32 could be. In a little bit, I'm gonna have you do some activities. Yeah! Right? And so you're gonna complete the list of row 32 in some ways, but this is just to get you started and thinking a little bit about it. Those who think differently, operate differently, communicate differently, we talk about that as neurodiversity, right? Those who speak differently, those who use a lot of curse words, and we ostracize them, right? I see you, sister, I see you. And we ostracize them because they don't sound like us. They're not proper, right? All those who use different grammar. By the way, in the packet, last night I was talking to my wife about a song I was gonna sing, and she looked at the lyrics and she's like, Parfait, there's a typo. I was like, darn, we printed the stuff out and I even laminated about 100 of them for my trainings. So ignore any typo you see in there, That could be an opportunity for row 32 experience there. Right? Those with a different immigration status in our midst, right? Those who identify differently with their gender of birth. Those with a different sexual orientation. Those with a criminal record, and for whom so many doors are shut as a result. Right? So I want you to ponder that. There's a possibility of row 32. Now, in my native West Africa, there is this community figure or title called, in French they call it le griot, the griot. And they play a really critical role in the community. They're storytellers. They remind the community of history. They also sometimes have a prophetic voice, talking about what could be, what might happen. In that tradition, honoring my own background as a native of West Africa, I'm going to impersonate the role of a griot today in your midst. And they usually sing songs in order to carry and share their messages. I'm going to sing the song it's called The Other. And the other could be the one sitting in row 32. So if I could lend my voice to amplify what they're feeling, the violence, the discomfort of sitting at row 32, that's what that could sound like. So the lyrics with a typo are on your table. And here it goes. Look at me, I am the other. I have a story, a name to ponder. Just like you, I was made with wonder, and I'm sitting in your midst, wishing I was on your list. Look at me, I am the other. I have a story, a name to ponder. Just like you, I was made with wonder, and I'm sitting in your midst, wishing I was on your list. Hey, I've been told that I'm asking way too much, oh no. to hold on to the truth and breathe a light. Bring my being to the light and disrupt the show. With these lies and denials and please the crowd. And my name isn't the other. I have a story in case you wonder. Just like you, I was made with wondering and sitting in your midst. Wishing I was on your list. And my name isn't the other. I have a story in case you wonder. Just like you, I was made with wondering and sitting in your midst. Wishing I was on your list. I'm on that road best known to street down the fears and the lies, trying to live in truth and be set free by love. Truth is the last and heals my wounded soul. Trade the shackles of comfort so may count as lost. My name isn't the other. I have a story in case you wonder. Just like you, I was made with wondering and sitting in your bed, wishing I was on your list. And my name isn't the other. I have a story in case you wonder. Just like you, I was made with wondering and sitting in your bed, wishing I was on your list. I'm sitting in your midst, wishing I was on your list. Look at me, I am the other. I have a story and name to ponder. Just like you, I was made with wondering. I'm sitting in your midst, wishing I was on your list. Sitting in your midst, wishing I was on your list. Thank you. How y'all doing? I'm not convinced. How y'all doing? Awesome. So, a couple things. A little bit of theory, and then we'll get into some activities. When we think about the experience of the Row 32, it's called being othered. Right? It's the idea of action or inaction by people or individuals that make you feel like an outsider while you could still be in a space with them. The invitation, really, the thought process is how can we increase our circle of concern? Right? When I came into the room this morning, it was amazing the sight of community building that was happening. I mean, people know each other here, right? There was no need for prompts to start talking, how are you doing, and all that stuff. We are in what it seems like in each other's circle of concern. The question for us as we continue to expand and build greater community is to think about how do we expand that circle of concern so that Row 32 is included. Because belonging, you see, is the experience of being seen, of feeling seen, heard, cared about, and supported. So with that, I want to offer a little bit, I guess, a tool or strategy, some resource that I found very helpful from Dr. Gene Wright, he's written the book called The Four Pivots. Anyone has read it here? Okay. Come on, I see you, sister, okay? That's why you're always a few steps ahead of all of us, right? So, It's a must read, friends. It is a must read. The 4 pivots. In essence, what Dr. Sean Jean Wright is offering as a tool and strategy for our special leaders in this room is that some of the problems we have in our society currently, and some of the reasons why, again, not just the only reason, but some of the reasons why the Road 32 experience is still a thing and continues to be a thing is, one, because we have overvalued critical lens over introspection, which typically when we develop that muscle, it allows us to have a greater sense of awareness about where our blind spots could be, who might be having a slightly different experience. So it's an invitation, not a either or dynamic, but an invitation to also work on that introspective muscle. The second pivot, and the thing about pivots is that it's not a drastic change right away, right? It's just an angle shift, but over time gets you to a different destination. And the second pivot he's offering is one to move from transactional relationships to transformational relationships, where we don't see people as commodities or objects towards achieving something, but more like people with a sanctity and dignity and value, inherent value in who they are rather than what they do, and engage from that place of transformation rather than transaction. The third pivot that he's offering is that because our world is so jacked up, because Road 32s, there's so many Road 32s, we have been conditioned to be operating in a paradigm of reactivity. So we are still just problem solving and trying to respond to the problems and not operating in an innovative, inventive space. So he's inviting us to, again, it's a challenge, right? Because there's crisis to respond to, there's problems to address. But he's inviting to challenge ourselves and think about how do we step out of this reactivity and start envisioning and creating rather than reacting to the problems in front of us. And lastly, he invites us to be present with one another. And the frenzy, he says that there's just this addiction to frenzy in America. And ever since I read that, I was like, dude, you're right. I hate that you're right, but you're right. Like, I catch myself talking to people, and every time, how you doing, man? I'm busy. And it's almost like everybody's competing about who's busier. Right? I'm busy, I have this going on, and me too, right? We're busy, and so we miss out. We miss out on the opportunity to be actually present with the things that need to be attended to notice the things that need to be noticed, right? So, there are many ways to do this and think about these pivots, but one space I want to spend time on today with you is the reflection piece. Self-reflection, I think, in the line of work that I do, I believe that's one of the biggest, most important pillar to community building, is reflecting on the kind of person we are and who we want to be. So I'm about to put some questions on the screen. Now, don't be scared. It might be for you your time to experience Road 32 today. I want to recognize that those questions, you may not have thought about these questions before, but they're important questions. So you'll take a few moments, think about them, and then we're going to do an exercise of speed dating. Have you ever done that? So y'all are good at it. I saw you do that before we started the program. Y'all were just speed dating here. So now it's going to be with a different prompt, right? So I'm going to time you, and you're going to share with one another your answers to this question. And I want to invite you to push yourself a little bit with those questions. You see that mirror? I'm inviting you to look at the mirror. You know, I cannot sing Michael Jackson's version of Man in the Mirror either. That would have been nice to bust that out. Okay, here's the first prompt. How do I need to be as a human being for someone else to better notice? This is misspelled because I changed the question this morning at 5 a.m. Because I was like, the other one was too hard. So let me phrase it this way. How do I need to be as a human being so that I can notice those in Road 32 better? Okay, that's the prompt. How do I need to be as a human being in order to notice others who are having the 32 experience better? An example for me would be to slow down, right? So you can think about what that would look like for you. You with me? So make a mental note or write it down because you're gonna have to share that with someone, okay? There are pens at the table, right? There we go, grab a pen. Okay, second question. Who could I extend my circle of human concern to? I offered a list earlier of possible things. Race, immigration status, gender identity, sexual orientation, color of skin, social status, economic status. The list goes on. You can think about who do you need to, who could you extend your circle of concern to? What will my biggest challenge with that be? So in my case, I give the example, single parents in a community, right? I could think about them more and be engaged and be an advocate a lot more. What will be my biggest challenge? Making time. Oftentimes we say find time. No, you gotta make time, right? And then last but not least, what resources or support will I need for this journey? And I need someone, a talking buddy I can talk to and say, hey, how's that going? I messed up this week, right? So I'll give you an additional 15 seconds and then we'll break out and then we will share with one another. Look at this as a starting point, right? Let's not elevate perfection here, but more like practice, okay? And then you go back in the community and then you continue reflecting on these questions, right? So I just want to get you started on this. But I give you 30 seconds because I heard you. Okay, so just quickly, just words, not sentences, words describing what this experience was like for you.
Go.
Good.
Fun!
Fun, dope, and comfortable. What else? Energizing. Oh, that's a little harder. Okay. You can walk home this morning or back to your work saying this was a why moment. That's how the programs are designed, the why. To challenge you, make you uncomfortable, make it fun, energize you, thought-provoking, providing connections. That's your why experience. That's community building. So the invitation here is beyond the check that you're gonna write. That you replicate this wherever you're at. You build community, you create community in that way. So the last slide says, I see you, I hear you, I am with you. I am conflicted right now, I'm running out of time. There was one last song I wanted to sing for y'all. It's called Safe House. I think I'm gonna get in trouble with Sarah and still sing the song. And then that'll be it. The invitation, my friends, is that as you go out in the community with this why experience, is to be intentional about seeing, noticing. And then once we notice, the next step is not to assume that we know the story, but be curious in order to hear the story. And then third, not to project our own insecurity and savior complex, but to walk alongside with folks as we're finding solutions and collaborate with them. I see you with a limp from afar. I see all of you. I am curious about you. What has brought you this far? I have time to you. Where do only birds fly when they're trying to survive? Wonder this for a while, yeah. Where do only birds fly when they try to survive? Will I be a safe house? I hear you. All the scars from before. I do have some to tell me how I can support you. Stories and my truth. Oh, what needs have you? Where do only birds fly when they're trying to survive? I've wondered this for a while now, yeah. Where do only birds fly when they're trying to I'm with you. As you heal from these wounds, you're rekindling my youth. I will journey alongside of you. As you grow wings anew, I will soar with you. Where do wounded birds fly when they're trying to survive? I've wondered this for a while now, yeah, yeah. Where do wounded birds fly when they're trying to survive? Will I be a safe house? Yeah, 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 yeah. Will I be a safe house? Will I be a safe house? Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.